Yeah, it's my dad's. And that's really why I wanted to, get it done for him. It's a 1966 Lotus Cortina Mk1. There was about 1 million Cortinas produced. Of the 1 million Cortinas produced, there were 2,800 that were produced by Lotus. So Ford produced the body and shipped it to Lotus. Lotus acid dipped them to make the skin thinner, lighter weight. And they made the first 1,000 of them so they could be homogenated, I guess they call it the word is, so they could race them. This car was made because at the time, back in the 60s in England, there was no such thing as a fast Ford. So Colin Chapman said he's going to do something with it, and that's where it came from. It was really a modified Lotus Cortina, which is a standard kind of car in England, was modified to be used for racing. It comes to 105 horsepower, got a 4-speed transmission, and in race form, this car produces 150 horsepower. That was a normal when it was racing. It won at the Sebring 12-hour. It came in third in the '67 Daytona 24. It won 3 British touring car championships for the year. It won all kinds of rallies and races. It was raced all over Europe, Australia, and in the United States. Dan Gurney drove one of these. Mario Andretti drove one. Phil Hill. Jim Clark, of course, is the one that made it famous. I mean, he was a world record. He won all kinds of titles with this car. He was always famous for going around the corners, lifting it he was on 3 wheels the whole time going around the corners. There's a lot of YouTubes out there that show this car racing. It'll show the car going down the straightaway and all the Mustangs fly past them. Shows them going into the corners and shows the Lotus and Cortinas going around them and they just back and forth, back and forth. They actually won quite a few races in the United States. This car was purchased in England and brought back to the United States by my dad. Brand new, he ordered it from the Lotus factory. He was in the service. My dad was a pilot. Companies in England were, catering to military guys. If you bought a car from them, they'd ship it back to the States free when you came back to the States. My dad was, like I said, in the service. My dad was a fighter pilot in the Second World War. Flew P-38s and P-40s, and he became an instructor. And then once he got his multi-engine certification, he was put into a multi-engine airplane, so he was flying B-17s and B-25s. And that was right near the end of the war, and so he went back into being an instructor, was training people to go to the battle, and then right in 1940, right at the end of the war, he got orders to go to the Pacific. He was actually on a boat heading to the Pacific, and the war ended, so my dad actually never got into combat. So he came back from that, and he said, okay, I'm done with this. And he got out and started TV business. At the time, TV business was that was a new thing. This was 46, and somewhere in there. And he was doing really good at it, and he got recalled to fly in Korea. So he got back in the Air Force and went to Korea and flew what they call the mosquito pilot, forward air controller. He would go in and fire marker rockets to where the enemy troops were, and then the F-86s would come in and obliterate the whole area where he had marked it. So he came back from that. He said, okay, now that I'm staying in. He got retrained into electronics, but he kept his pilot license, so he flew the whole time he was doing that. And in the 70s, he got retrained in helicopters, and he went to fly rescue copter missions in Vietnam. He was a squadron commander. They stationed him in Thailand, and then he went TDY 3 weeks every month to Vietnam to fly rescue. He got a Bronze Star over there for valor, saving some pilot. He was a great guy. My dad was really cool. This car came back to the States in '67, and it came into Maryland. And at the time, my dad was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. So that's where it originally was first registered in the United States. And there was a sports car club on the base there, and we autocrossed this car and the car that I brought back. I brought back a Sunbeam Alpine. So then from Maryland, it went to Alabama. Alabama was registered, then it went to Texas. Texas, my dad then went to California. California, then he retired and went to Minnesota. Minnesota, then he moved back to Texas. In Texas, he went back into PA from Texas. My father passed in 2008. This car towed a 16-foot wooden boat across the United States 3 times. Why you would want to tow a wooden boat with this little car? I mean, it's unique to drive. One of the reasons I wanted to restore this car was because of the uniqueness of the car, and the other one because of my dad. My dad was so special to me. It was made lightweight. I mean, the car weighs 1,800 pounds. So it isn't that it has a whole lot of power, but because it's so light, it handles really well, and it was a fast car. Well, I just wish that my dad could see it. I mean, he kept it in the garage, and like I said, hadn't been run for, what, 40 years. And he cherished it, and I wanted it for my dad. I mean, like you said, why are you doing this? My wife asked me the same question every day, but I did it because of the uniqueness of the car, and it was because of my dad's love of life. I mean, he really loved this car, and my dad was the epitome of what you would think a World War II fighter pilot would be like. It was a fun guy. It's a neat car. I mean, until you can really drive a car that's this light and handles like this thing does, it's a unique car. It really is. And because of my dad and because of the uniqueness of the car, this car is worth saving.